This is Outside of New York. In-depth discussions with members of the art world who live and work outside of New York. And here's your host, Craig Gould.
Nic Nicosia is an internationally recognized artist who recently returned to Dallas after 10 years in Santa Fe. Nic gained notoriety in the early 80s as one of the leaders of the stage photography movement. He's been selected for the Whitney Biennial twice, once for his photography and once for film. He's also been selected for participation in Documenta, the Kassel, Germany-based art exhibition which gathers the best of the art world for site-specific works every 5 years. His work is included in the permanent collections of the Museum of Modern Art in New York, the Guggenheim, the Whitney Museum of American Art, the Los Angeles County Museum of Art, and the Museum of Contemporary Art in Chicago, amongst many others. He's been the recipient of a Louis Comfort Tiffany Foundation grant, as well as a Guggenheim Fellowship. The Contemporary Arts Museum of Houston hosted a 20-year retrospective in 1999, which subsequently traveled to other venues. And in 2012, a major retrospective of his life's work was published by the University of Texas Press. Nic is represented in Dallas by Erin Cluley Gallery. I recently sat down with Nic at his home studio where we discussed growing up in Dallas, studying filmmaking, being part of a movement, the changing art world in Santa Fe, the willingness to continue to try new things, and the measurement of time.
Like my student, time kind of like sits there. But
Right. And so, well, I really appreciate you being willing to sit down and,
Sure.
and talk.
Well, I looked at the list of people, and you should talk to Vernon.
Yeah.
And, there's others. There's Melissa Miller in Austin, and there's some of the older people, the established older
Right.
artists that may be more nationally known. And because I think your idea is really cool because, this is funny, but a collector of mine, do you ever watch Sam Jones interview people? He's a photographer.
Yes. Yeah, I think I've finished like his first season.
Yeah. And he kind of gets into their life a little bit. Dave Letterman's trying that with his thing, but I could listen to him all day long. But anyway, I thought, no one, anytime I've ever been interviewed or there's been a video of any artist, no one ever finds out why they make what they make. Right. It's just like what they make and how they make it. And I said, I didn't have the ambition to do what you're doing, but I was telling her, I said, it'd be a great idea if someone would just ask artists, where they came from, why they're doing what they do, and then all of a sudden I get your email.
It's fate.
I went, someone's doing it. It's great.
Great.
And it sounds great. You have a great voice.
Oh, thank you.
Are you in anything, radio or?
No, I never have been. I'm just 6'5". This is my voice.
That you are.
And so people always said, you've got a nice voice, but I use my voice in as much as I'm a high school art teacher. I teach painting, AP portfolio, AP art history at the high school level, and so that gives me, that has me with an 8 to 4 job, 8 months out of the year, that where my employer is happy if I make as much artwork as I want during the day.
It's a great job, actually. Right. Did you see the art, the high school students' art at the DMA? Your students in it?
Yeah, no, they're not. The foundation. I've been teaching.
Was that all O'Donnell?
Yes, that is the Young Masters from the O'Donnell Foundation. And I've reached out to the O'Donnell Foundation before, but my understanding is that not not all school districts, they have not approved all school districts to participate in their program. And for whatever reason, my district was not included whenever they set it up.
Yeah.
And so I have not gone through the machinations to, correct that. But
the work was unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, it was admirable.
Oh, sure.
I mean, it was like, good grief. I mean, when I was in high school, I went to Jesuit, and our entire art experience was, I think, probably one of the priests or something, or they brought somebody in like maybe once a month, maybe once a semester for like a week. I don't remember. It was a long time ago.
Right.
But it was just boobs and ashtrays, period. I mean, there's a couple of my friends that were like great draftsmen, like they could do caricatures or draw realistic drawings of teachers or friends or whatever. But for the most part, there wasn't any exposure to it at all. And to see these high school kids,
right? Yeah,
it's changed here.
Yeah, and it's really, I mean, even in my, I remember. I'm just. Are you okay?
Isolange.
I'm a little younger than you are, and I remember in my high school, I started taking private painting lessons when I was like 9 or 10. In high school, I took one art class, and it was that generic art one class where you're really not accomplishing a lot. But nowadays, a school like mine. We're a high school of 3,000 students. We have 5 art teachers.
Oh, wow.
We offer, like 4 levels of digital media, 3 levels or 2 levels of painting, 3 levels of drawing, 3 levels of sculpture, AP portfolios, and 2D design, and drawing, and 3D design, and these AP portfolios. It's really hard to believe that a kid can get to the place that they're expected to get to there, because that portfolio, what they want to see is like a dozen pieces that show the breadth of what you're able to do, and then for example, like samples of all of the different projects you've worked on over the years. And then, a particular project, a concentration, like just one of your, those slices of like your body of work. They want you to be able to get there and, fully explore it and have, 9, 10, 11 pieces. And they want you to be able to do that by the time.
And this is high school.
Right.
This is amazing because you can barely get college students to do that.
Right.
And when I was asked to be an adjunct, and that was at North Texas or SMU or UTA, the first thing I would do, and this terrified them, is I would say, okay, then next time we meet, I want you to bring everything that you've done. Right. And and I would go like, this is awful. No, why? No. And they were like, and then all of a sudden you would come upon something that they were really good at, and go, or I would say like, what did you like doing the most? Because it was assignments, do a landscape, do a portrait, come up with this or that. And they would always pick their best. They would say, I really like doing this. And I go, yeah, no kidding. It's like your best. Right. So this semester, that's it. That's all you're going to do. And they had never been offered that option before. Right. It was like, do this. And then you're critiqued on just doing something that you're sort of forced to do. Right. And usually you don't get to that level till you're like, I don't know, you can't call them seniors, but your last semester, say. Right. Where you can focus on what you're good at. And to be able to offer that to high school students is really remarkable. Yeah, and that in the class, it's the most rewarding thing for me is getting, trying to influence the way they think. Yeah. Right. I mean, it's one thing to, give them the skills to use each of these tools and do it correctly, but getting them to the point where they have a creative process that they go through
And, that a lot of times it's a really cathartic experience for them, because the most successful portfolios are the ones that reflect something personal to that student.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's
all
like
art for me.
Right. And so we have to kind of dive in and, have like this group therapy session about, what is it that is incredibly personal? What is it that, is your story? What is something that you can tap into and go deep and be vulnerable? And we talk about how, when you put yourself out there and you're vulnerable as an artist, people aren't going to judge you and judge whatever your weakness or whatever it is that you're exposing, that they're going to, connect personally and, share that emotion of,
Sure.
with, personally.
They're going to take something from it.
Right.
They're going to say, oh yeah, I remember when I was a kid, if it's a narrative work, or if it has human figures. I wonder where that skipped a generation, because it appears that people within their late 20s to 40s are basically, it's overwhelmed by abstract art, making a shape and coloring it or not coloring it. And I don't always grab any emotional content to it at all. And I mean, you can make an emotional abstract painting if it flows that way. I just feel that it's missing, and I'm not just talking about Dallas. I'm talking about New York, Chicago, L.A., you name it. And if you go through art fairs, it's just gobs of it.
Right.
But that's also because so much information, visual information, is just everywhere, and maybe that's the approach they have to take. Maybe this is all. The formalism is more attuned to like the times, as opposed to letting anything profound show up.
Yeah, and it's something I talk about with my art history students about how because we talk about this the entirety of the arc of art, and how if we think of, in particular, painting, this history of figurative painting, and it just jumps off a cliff with the advent of photography. And photography allows painting to quit its day job. And now photography is documenting, and painting, is allowed to, or is sort of forced to go in this other direction, which kind of leads down the path of abstraction, but it's
photography was documenting until my generation,
right? And that was part of the conversation, like I was having with Deborah Hunter. It was like, it was almost purely documenting, up until right about the time you and Deborah Hunter, I think you're roughly the same age, early 70s. I think actually you were part of the movement that was kind of. Yeah,
I'm part of more. If I was living in New York, they would still consider me part of the picture generation, but I'm not that. But I did. I began showing in New York. First solo show was in 1982, and it was the time when all the usual suspects, Laurie Simmons, Cindy Sherman. They sort of, there was Ellen Brooks and Eileen Cowan. It was mostly, there was Bernard Falcone, who was French, and a handful of people. And then there was also Richard Prince, of course. Mm-hmm. You can name them all. Sherry Levine, appropriating the photographs of... No, was it Edward Weston? No, Walker Evans. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so it was like no one really came straight from a photographic background, and we sort of try to do everything against traditional street photography. I don't think anyone. I didn't make it a point